Thank you guys for having me. So there's no not awkward way to get around the fact that you're eating breakfast, and I'm talking about eating disorders, so I'll just put that out there. When I was 9 years old, I stopped eating my lunch to save my $1 lunch money for my dad, who was unemployed and needed money and depressed. Then no one really stopped me, so it became a bit addictive. I stopped eating breakfast, then I stopped eating dinner. By the time I started 5th grade and was 10 years old, soon after that I was admitted to the psychosomatic ward at Stanford Children's Hospital. The admitting nurse said I should have actually died a week before because my heart should have stopped. The only reason I survived is because I stopped eating slowly. Now I was 10 years old, I started when I was 9, so I was prepubescent. So a lot of people think eating disorders are just teenage girls and they're associated with body image, and definitely that does play a factor, but actually 9% of the US population will suffer from an eating disorder at some point, and it's a lot more than, because I was prepubescent, it wasn't body image related, it was related to, it was my way to tell the adults in the world that my home life needed some changes, and unfortunately no one quite noticed in time, but they did notice before the end. So it was interesting. Then I became a journalist later in life, and I went back and talked to, for the book Straightjackets and Lunch Money, interviewed the doctors who treated me and such, and so the Lunch Money in the title comes from when I stopped eating. The Straightjackets comes from some of the treatment I received when I was in the hospital, and it's, I don't have blame or anything on that. It's really difficult to treat a 10-year-old who is bent on killing themselves by starvation. And so I learned about the treatment then, the treatment now. And one of the things that was interesting about anorexia in particular is, and I was never fully, I was eating disorder secondary to an undefined thing. It's hard with terminology. Now they have all sorts of different terms for eating disorders and such. But one of the things why people stop eating, I learned from one of the doctors who treated me, is they're anxious. And a great way to get rid of anxiety is to not eat, because when you don't eat, you have no energy, right? So you're not going to feel all that anxiety. So one of the problems with treating them is when you start bringing food back, the anxiety comes back. So they're actually this really complex thing to treat. Even all these years later, when I was doing the research, there still aren't any great treatment methods. And so I think one of the reasons I wrote, I had an eating disorder in the first place was to draw attention to what I was feeling that I couldn't articulate as a 9-year-old. But the reason I wrote the book was to draw attention to the people like myself and those I felt had been kind of shut away because we were put in a psychosomatic ward. It wasn't locked, but it was closed, and I thought it was easier for people to kind of ignore us. And so the book was kind of to show what that is like for those people, and then also to shine a light on psychosomatic wards, which is where you treat the mental and physical together. So the first way eating disorders were treated was just by therapists, but the therapist, psychiatrist I interviewed said, well, that doesn't help because you can talk to them all you want, but if they're not eating, they're going to die. So you need the medical part where you force feed them with feeding tubes and such like that. And that was kind of what was happening when I was a kid. Psychosomatic wards were treated together. Now, unfortunately, because of insurance, everyone wants to separate medical and physical, and so you aren't treated together. So you're just kind of stabilized medically and then you're released. But the problem is a lot of the people who have an eating disorder, it's, as I was explaining, it's not just about image or anything like that. It's because there's something going on, and oftentimes with children, it's something in the family. So if you put them back in their family situation, just after you stabilize them, they're going to keep returning, and that's what's happening a lot. And they're going to emergency rooms, and they're just repeat customers there. So, unfortunately, there wasn't like a good change over time, but there is more knowledge now. I think that's really important. And I think another thing that's important to understand about eating disorders is that it's not really recovered. It's one of those things that's like alcoholics. It's very similar to someone. It's lifelong, so you just find ways to cope and always deal with that. And I think that is my time, so thank you very much.